Many people don't actually understand that we are in an information war. And what I mean by that is, like, the war in Ukraine, there is a hot war militarily that's going on, the counteroffensive and all that. There is a political war where allies are getting together to support Ukraine. There is an economic war with sanctions, and then there's an information war, and there's probably other gradations as well. But in the information war, what's going on? So information warfare is the manipulation of information trusted by a target without the target's awareness. They're trying to deceive them so that the target will make decisions against their interests, but in the interest of the one conducting the information warfare. And that's what's really going on. RT, Russian state media, is actually masterful at this. In fact, talking about information warfare, their article here just a couple days ago was Ukraine's propaganda machine is vital for Zelensky, and here's how it works. Now, Zelensky has spent time in the media. He understands media. He understands the value of media. And so he has actually been very effective in making his case to the broader world. I'm just going to read a couple of quotes. The Russia-Ukraine conflict isn't just about the clash of armed forces on the battlefield. It has been marked by unprecedented levels of confrontation in the fields of information and psychology, cognition, and semantics. Well, a broken clock is right twice a day, and they are right about that. Kyiv has arguably achieved more success on the information front than on the ground. Well, they're wrong about the than on the ground part, but let's keep going. A little bit further, they say, in fact, public attitudes toward the battle were largely shaped by the media, and they are shaped by the media, and that's why this is important. Now, if you think that Russia hasn't brought their information war to the United States, you're wrong. Like all the conflict that we had in 2016, by the way, find this book in a library or get it from Amazon. I'll put the link below. So Rebecca Koffler was born in the Soviet Union, and then she worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency. And if you follow her narrative and the way that she understands this, it's not that the Russians are trying to set a Manchurian candidate with Donald Trump. That wasn't what happened. And I know that that's a pervasive narrative, but let's follow this. They didn't want really to sow seeds for a particular candidate. They just wanted to sow discord. In fact, they were surprised when Trump won. Maybe pleasantly surprised, but they were trying to sow discord so it would make it hard for Hillary Clinton to govern. That's why it looked like they were supporting Trump. And that's really interesting. They're happy to support both woke and racist things simultaneously so that we're at odds with each other. And that's how their information warfare has worked in the United States. Now, it's not just the United States. Here's New Zealand. New Zealand's RNZ apologizes for pro-Kremlin garbage on Ukraine. That, in fact, the narrative has been infiltrated by people who are putting a Russian spin on their news. And they're not the only place. One of the articles I saw was in Euronews, and I was just reading the articles, and then one of my viewers, ML Harden, sent this video to me. This was absolutely awesome because they described how they were doing something with the French. So let's hear what they had to say.
Russian disinformation campaign aimed at undermining Western support for Ukraine. The agency responsible for fighting online foreign interference said that pro-Russian information was promoted by accounts mimicking popular French newspapers, including Le Figaro and La Parisienne. The information was then circulated by fake social media accounts. Common theories pushed by the campaign were the ineffectiveness of sanctions and the danger of accepting Ukrainian refugees.
Okay, now if you're following what they said they created these spoof sites that looked just like the actual newspaper, but what they did was they only changed a little bit in the narrative for certain things. Now, that would lead us to ask, well, what are the certain things and why do they want to change that narrative? They left everything else alone. Well, they're against sanctions. Well, that's good to know. If they're against sanctions, it's because sanctions are having some effect and they want those sanctions to go away. They're arguing that the refugees are a problem, and so they're trying to compound the feelings that Europeans have about the problems associated with Ukraine to draw away support. Let's hear what else they have to say.
I'm now joined by Nika Alexieva. She's a resident fellow for the Baltics at the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensic Research Lab and has researched Russian disinformation campaigns previously. Good to have you with us. Tell us more, if you can, about this disinformation campaign.
Sure. So we came across this campaign almost a year ago, and we particularly researched its actions on Meta's platform, namely Facebook and Instagram. But I would say that the core of the campaign is exactly what has surfaced today regarding France, but even previously targeted countries as also Germany, Italy, including also Latvia, where I'm based. And so the campaign was to basically copy the source codes of known media outlets and host them on spoofed domains and own web infrastructure. And in the spoofed version, the content would really promote pro-Russian narratives like lifting sanctions or stopping deployment of weapons to Ukraine. But the remaining version of the website would be the same. So if a user who...
Okay, so before she talks about what else happens with that, remember, they're trying to convince readers that this is actually the way it's written and then have them share it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else. And they're not touching the rest of the newspaper so that it looks like the legitimate thing.
Clicked on the spoofed link would land on the faked article, but started to click around to make sure if, say, Le Monde actually wrote this article, the user would think that Le Monde indeed did it because all the other hyperlinks remain the same. And this is the clever part because it takes very little resources to do, but has the very effective cognitive effect on a reader. At the same time, we must say that on Meta, the campaign was mostly unsuccessful in terms of engagement it garnered, because the only significant engagement was for the posts that were also promoted via paid advertisement. So we saw very low investment in authenticity of the pages that promoted such narratives, and only traction they garnered was paid, which we see.
So it wasn't organic traffic. Not a lot went, to as far as they could tell, not a lot of it was spread other than what was already paid or sponsored in order to be spread. So it was a good idea if you're on the Russian side to try to do this, but it didn't really get the traction. But the devil's in the details, right? We don't know how far it might have spread organically elsewhere beyond that, beyond the original spread. And we don't know about the long-term effects. And the long-term effects are what you have to worry about, because you hear people mindlessly parrot things like, well, you know, the coup in 2014, and they assume certain things because they've heard it again and again and again. Let's continue.
See is basically not organic traction. Right. Thus, we can't really assess if it's really effective in the real life.
So if there is low engagement, as you say, why does the Kremlin keep doing it?
Well, most likely it's in the long game, because we know that propaganda is effective in long term, and repetition is one of its key features, because human brain is wired to reject something new, but more often our brain is exposed to information, more familiar it seems to our brain, the less dangerous it seems. And so slowly we start to accept it as a part of our reality. Therefore, repetition and persistency in repetition is very essential. And though the campaign is not very successful in garnering comments, likes, other types of engagement, it still can generate eyeballs, and people may share the spoofed links outside of the networks, and it may have some limited traction.
And that's what they're hoping for. They're hoping to be able to spread that. So this is how information warfare works. Now, it can work for you just as well. When you like and share and subscribe, not just myself, but other pro-Ukraine YouTube videos, or put them on social networks or whatever else, it spreads and it grows and it goes faster. So you're involved in the information warfare in Ukraine. You're helping them, even if you can't be on the battlefield, just by repeating the information that needs to get out there to keep Ukraine as a focus for our leaders, as well as spreading information that is true to those that care about it. Before I go, there's another book up here, and this is a gag gift. It is a complete collection of Vladimir Putin's Truth About Ukraine. And when you click on the link and open the Kindle book, it's completely blank after the table of contents. And so if you purchase that book, it's on Kindle for $2.99. All the proceeds will go to Ukraine charities. So check that out in the links below. I'll also put the link to the Koffler book in the links below. And thank you for your time. Thank you for being the kind of person that is interested in hearing what we have to say about propaganda. Thank you for the likes, the subscribe, the coffees, and thank you most of all for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.